So we have seen horizontal FDI. Let's now see the vertical FDI. Vertical FDI takes two forms: backward vertical FDI and forward vertical FDI. The backward vertical FDI is an investment in an industry abroad that provides inputs for a firm's domestic production process. So, for example, an Indian company needs raw material or any other supplies or technology, any other such kind of input it requires. This can so this is they can invest in such type of companies. That's for a backward vertical. So we need all these input resources for producing the final product. So raw material, then that turns into work in progress, that turns into finished product vertically. So from the position of raw material, we are shaping it to the finished product from one stage to another stage. This is vertical or indirect. So when a company invests in such kind of things, and such kind of companies which supplies input resources for the domestic production process is called backward vertical FDI. So forward vertical FDI occurs when an industry abroad sells the outputs of a firm's domestic production process. This is less common than backward vertical FDI, opposite to that. So we are going back. So our business is to manufacture some product, final product. We need some input resources. So we invest in companies which supplies those input resources. Backward, we are going back. Forward, if no, we invest in companies which sell our final products or domestic production process. Then it is forward vertical FDI. So these are the forward and backward vertical FDI. So strategic behavior. One explanation for firms' choice of vertical FDI is that by using vertical backward integration, a firm can gain control over the source of raw materials. This would allow the firm to raise entry barriers and shut new competitors out of an industry. Whereas the another explanation of vertical FDI is that firms use this strategy to circumvent the barriers established by firms already doing business in a country. So when a company invests in its integrates with the companies which are supplying input resources, then it would find very easy to carry its operations. It can avoid that complexities and problems created by the rival companies in that field of business. So market imperfections. The market imperfections approach offers two explanations for vertical FDI. There are impediments to the sale of know-how through the market mechanism. Investments in specialized assets expose the investing firm to hazards that can be reduced only through vertical FDI. These are market imperfections. So decision-making grid for FDI. How high are the transportation costs and tariffs? So if it is low, you export. If it is high, is know-how amenable to licensing? So if it is no, then horizontal FDA. If it is yes, then is tight control over foreign operations required? If it is yes, horizontal FDA. If it is no, then can know how be protected by licensing contract. So if it is no, horizontal FDA. If it is yes, then license it. This is a grid for FDA. Based on this, we can make a decision. So political economy for foreign direct investment. Political ideology and foreign direct investment, the benefits of FDI to host countries, benefits to home countries, and cost to host countries and cost to home countries. So benefits of FDI to host countries, the costs of FDI to host countries, and the benefits and costs of FDI to home countries. And government policy instruments and FDI. So political ideology and FDI. So radical view, pragmatic nationalism, free market. This is the political ideology of foreign direct investment. The radical view is Marxist view. Multinational enterprises exploit less developed host countries, MNCs or MNEs, extract profits, give nothing of value in exchange, an instrument of domination and not development. So keep less developed countries relatively backward and dependent on capitalist nations for investment, jobs, and technology. This is a radical view. By the end of 1980s, radical view was an retreat, collapse of communism, bad economic performance of countries that embraced the radical view, strong economic performance of countries who embrace capitalism rather than the radical view. So the free market view, nations specialize in goods and services that they can produce most efficiently. Resource transfers benefit and strengthen the host country. Positive changes in laws and growth of bilateral agreements attest to strengthen a free market view. All countries impose some restrictions on FDI. This is free market view. Pragmatic nationalism FDI has benefits and costs. So allow FDI if benefits outweigh costs. Block FDI that harms indigenous industry. It's a protectionist policy. Court FDI that is in national interest, tax breaks and subsidies. So summary of political ideology. So political ideology toward FDI. Ideology, we have seen that radical free market and pragmatic nationalism. Characteristics of a radical view, Marxist roots and views the MNE, multinational enterprises, as an instrument of imperialist domination. Post-government policy implications. Prohibit FDI, nationalized subsidiaries of foreign-owned MNEs. In the free market view, classical economic roots, this is use the MNE as an instrument for allocating production to most efficient locations, no restrictions on FDI. And in case of pragmatic nationalism view, it views FDI as having both benefits and costs. When it comes to host government policy implications, restrict FDI where costs outweigh benefits, bargain for greater benefits and fewer costs, aggressively court beneficial FDI by offering incentives. So benefits of FDI to host countries. So we have home country, host country. Host countries where we are investing. If an Indian company goes and invests in America, then America is a host country. So what are the benefits of FDI to host country? Four main benefits of FDI for a host country. One is resource transfer effect, an employment effect, balance of payments effect on competition of the economic growth. So definitely resources will be transferred from one country to another country. Resource transfer effect, in the sense the host, so the country can access, the company can access to the resources available over there, and the host country can transfer its technology, its other resources which give advantage to the business to the place where they are locating. And employment effect definitely generates employment to all nationals, both for home as well as host countries. So balance of payments effect, definitely balance of payments, foreign exchange reserves increase, we get more profits operating in other markets, other economies, and effect on competition and economic growth. So economy will grow. Why nations are inviting foreign companies to invest in their nations, their geographical regions for the economic growth. And in a free market view, economists argue that the benefits of FDI so outweigh the costs associated with pragmatic nationalism that it is misguided. So the best policy would be for countries to forego all intervention in an MNE's investment decisions. So FDI can make resource transfer effects. These are FDI can make a positive contribution to a host economy by supplying capital, technology, management, any other resource. All these are capital, technology, management. All these are resources. Even other resources can be transferred. Employment effect brings jobs that otherwise would not be created. Direct hiring host country citizens. So if an Indian company locates its business in America, so they hire people from that country. Host country is America. When American companies or any other European companies come over here and set up their facilities in India, so they hire people from India. European countries are home countries. Now India is hosting their business, so India is a host country. They hire the host country nationals. So indirect, that's direct then effect. Then indirectly, jobs created by local suppliers. See, when an MNC invested, start its business in India, it depends on several companies, subsidiary companies for supplies. So these subsidiary companies also come up, develop, supplying their products to the MNC, thereby creating employment to several people. So jobs created by increased spending by employees of multinational enterprise. These are the employment effects. Balance of payments effects. This balance of payments accounts are divided into two main sections. One is current account records, capital account records. So current account records transactions that pertain to three categories. One is merchandise goods, services, and investment income. As capital account records transactions that involve the purchase or sales of assets. So current account deficits occur when a country imports more goods, services, and income than it exports. Current account surplus occur when a country exports more goods, services, and income than it imports. So export should be more than the imports on the whole, so that we can maintain this balance of payments. So US balance of payment accounts for 2001, you see. 2001 to 2004. For 2004, this is $1 million. So current account credits, debits, exports of goods, services, and income, merchandise goods, services, income receipts from on investments, credits, debits, imports of goods, services, and income, merchandise goods, services, income payments on investments. So you can have a comparison of these figures. Balance of current account. So capital account, US assets abroad and foreign assets in US, statistical discrepancy. So host country benefits from initial capital inflow when MNC establishes business. So definitely if a foreign company come to India and start business, definitely India becomes host country, it benefits with initial capital inflow. Host country records current account debit on repatriated earnings of MNCs. So host country benefits if FDI substitutes for imports of goods and services. Both the work. So FDI substitutes for imports of goods and services. So host country also benefits when MNC uses its foreign subsidiary to export to other countries. The host country foreign exchanges increases. These are the balance of payments effect. So effect on competition and economic growth. So greenfield investments increases the amount of competition which can drive down prices, increase the economic welfare of consumers. So increased competition tends to stimulate capital investments. Long-term results may include increased productivity growth, product and process innovations, greater economic growth. So this is effect on competition and economic growth. Definitely this greenfield investments increases the amount of competition. So prices may go down and the economic welfare of consumers increases. And this stimulates capital investments also. So in the long run, the productivity growth increases, the process innovation, product and process innovations, and greater economic growth. Cost of FDI to host countries. So adverse effects on competition, adverse effects on the balance of payments, national sovereignty and autonomy. So after the initial capital inflow, there is normally a subsequent outflow of earnings. So foreign subsidiaries could import a substantial number of inputs. So imports increases in case of when an MNC starts its business in the host country. So it starts imports various input resources from other countries. So national sovereignty and autonomy, some host governments worry that FDI is accompanied by some loss of economic independence resulting in the host country's economy being controlled by a foreign corporation. So this is another one. We have this sovereignty is a myth of MNC. We think that the host country thinks that they lose their importance when they allow the foreign direct investment or MNCs. Like that. So benefits of FDI to the home country. So this home country benefits are, so for example, if an American company comes to India, America is home country, India is host country. How America benefits? Or if an Indian company goes abroad and starts its business, India is a home country and a foreign country is a host country. So how these home countries benefit with this direct investment? Improves balance of payments for inward flow of foreign earnings, creates a demand for exports because the Indian company is doing business in European countries and they import from India various input resources, so they become exports to India. So we get that creates a demand for exports. Export demand can create jobs. So increase knowledge from operating in a foreign environment. So benefits the consumer through lower prices, frees up employees and resources for higher value activity. These are benefits of FDI to home countries. And costs of FDI to the home countries. This can drive out local competitors or prevent their development. So this is another threat to the domestic companies or local competitors. If an MNC or a global company starts its business in some region, so local companies which are operating already over there locally, so they get affected. Profits brought home hurt a host's capital account. So here an MNC earns and take back the profits to their home country. That is another one. Then parts imported for assembly hurt trade balance, can affect sovereignty and national defense. These are the costs of FDI to the home country. Home country policies and FDI. So to encourage outward FDI, restricting outward FDI. Home country policies and FDI. So here, home country policy to encourage outward FDI. Government-backed insurance programs to cover foreign investment risk. Capital assistance, tax incentives, political pressure. So restricting outward FDI. So limit capital outflows out of concern for the country's balance of payments. Tax incentives to invest at home and prohibit national firms from investing in certain countries for political reasons. So encouraging inward host country policies and FDI. Encouraging inward FDI. Offer government incentives to foreign firms to invest, tax concessions, low interest loans, grant subsidies. So restricting inward FDI, ownership restraints. Foreign firms are prohibited to operate in certain fields. Foreign ownership is allowed, but a significant proportion of the equity must be owned by local investors. So they put that restriction. An MNC should join some local partner like that. Performance requirements that control the behavior of the MNE's local subsidiary. So the nature of negotiation, objective, reach an agreement that benefits both the parties. In the international context, we must understand the influence of norms and value systems. Also, we must be sensitive to how those factors influence a company's approach to negotiations. This is the process, negotiation process. Common interests, compromise, conflicting interests, criteria. So the negotiation process has been characterized as occurring within the context of the 4 C's: common interests, conflicting interests, compromise, and criteria. 4 C's. So negotiation and bargaining power. So the outcome of any negotiated agreement depends on the relative bargaining power of both parties. The bargaining power depends on 3 factors: the value each side places and what the other has to offer, the number of comparable alternatives available to each side, each party's time horizon. Bargaining power determines the bargaining power or the firm's time horizon, comparable alternatives open to firm, value placed by host government on investment, high, low. Bargaining power of firm is firm's time horizon. If it is long, high. If it is low, short. So if time is long, then bargaining power of firm is high. If time horizon is short, bargaining power is low. So comparable alternatives open to firm, many. If for few, low. Value placed by host government on investment, high, low. These are no bargaining powers. This we have seen. So this is what These are the foreign direct investments, trends of trends in FDI in world economy, benefits of FDI to host and home countries, and costs of FDI to home and host countries. These are the forms of FDI we have seen in this class. So these are the issues with regard to foreign direct investment. So we'll close the session. We'll see in the next class.